Good evening, and welcome to Nightmare Theater, an open book club for nightmares. I'm Sandor Desmond, and this is episode 9, where we're going to be talking about dreams and nightmares in the ancient world. After that, we're going to be going through some stories on Reddit, nightmares that is, from the subreddit nightmares, and we don't have any viewer-submitted nightmares this week, but if you would like me to read your nightmare live on the stream next week, please send your nightmares to theforgottengrove@gmail.com. Alright, so let's do this presentation. Whoops. Forgetting to press my buttons lately. Yep, looks good. Perfect. So, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about dreams and nightmares in the ancient world. And specifically, I wanted to focus on civilizations from the cradle of civilization, because there are others from the ancient Orient, as well as the ancient, Australian Aborigines, as well as Native Americans. But I thought that would be, it's a little removed from that region, so I thought I would stick to this region for this presentation. So many ancient cultures believed that the soul left the body during sleep, and that dreams were actual events happening to the soul in some other world. There's little distinction that was made between waking visions and dreams, however, and both were seen as highly significant, especially when they were shared by more than one person. There have also, right, I already said that, sorry. So dream incubation, otherwise known as oniromancy. So this is a form of divination based upon dreams. So it means that you're inviting the other world to send prophetic dreams or premonitory dreams, and often they can be of the future, of course, or they can be advice from a deity. And these were common across many ancient cultures, including Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Greece, and then there are also mentions of such dreams in Hebrew texts, older Hebrew texts, such as the Old Testament, and they refer to this practice. Across all cultures, there was some ritual, and it had some commonalities. So this is sort of the generic way that this would play out. So someone would travel to a temple or another holy place and offer a payment to the keepers of that holy place. There would often be a ritual that would then have to take place, which would include a sacrifice and eating certain foods or drinks, or fasting, so the absence of doing any of that. This was then followed by sleeping in the presence of the gods, in rooms of the temple that were specifically set aside for that purpose usually. And in some cases the dreaming was done by the person coming to the temple in order to try to get some advice from the divine or knowledge of the future. And in other cases it was actually done by some sort of prophet figure or professional dream interpreter at the temple. And they would sort of have your dream for you and interpret it, which is interesting. So in ancient Sumeria, Gilgamesh, who was dated around somewhere between 2700 to 2600 BC, so he was the king of the Sumerian city Uruk, and he recorded a dream of his own on a clay cylinder that still survives, and the dream was of several monstrous figures. It was interpreted by the priestess Nanshe as a command to Gudea to build a temple for the god Ningirsu. So often you'll notice in a lot of these dreams and nightmares. It's a message from the gods telling people to worship them or to build more temples to them, in which then people would have dreams to hear more from them. Clear message dreams, so these were ones that didn't really need to be interpreted, and they're relatively common in ancient literature. They generally consist of an impressive figure, usually that of a god or a human being, although occasionally it's an animal or an object, which then speaks a readily understandable message to the dreamer. The question of the authenticity of some historical examples arises, particularly since many of them seem to have arisen in political situations where a ruler may have claimed to have had a dream from a god that just so happened to also benefit them or benefit their interests. Their interests would have been served by that dream having been from God and from people believing that. It's also been observed that cultural expectations have great influence on dream content, probably not a surprise, and in societies where the message dream was expected, it occurred rather often. As an example, the dream of Nabonidus, who was the last king of Babylon from 556 to 539 BC, in which the great god Marduk and Sin, the moon god, appeared. Marduk spoke. Nabonidus, king of Babylon, bring bricks on your own chariot drawn by your own horse. Rebuild the temple, and let Sin, the great lord, take up his dwelling there. There was no doubt any meaning as to what the dream meant. It was simply that the king must reconstruct a temple, and there was no need to seek any further interpretation. Another such example comes from ancient Egypt, where Thutmose IV was a young man. This was a pharaoh, and he fell asleep. This was before he was a pharaoh, though. And he fell asleep in the shadow of the Sphinx, and in his dream the Sphinx told him to clear away the sand that was covering it, and in return he would rule the land as a great pharaoh. This message was clear and unequivocal. Ancient Egyptians made recordings or dream books of many of their dreams as well, and their interpretations. Other interesting dream interpretations from ancient Egypt, including seeing the moon in a dream, which was thought to be a good omen because it meant the gods were forgiving you, and dreams of seeing yourself in a mirror were thought to be bad and meant that you would have to find another wife. Yeah, and I thought that was kind of funny, imagining, oh, I'm so sorry, I had a dream where I saw myself in a mirror. Yeah, I know, it's that type of thing. I don't know if that kind of thing occurred, but it's just a funny thought I had reading that. In Egypt as well, those who had the professional competence to interpret dreams were specifically educated temple priests called Masters of the Secret Things, Scribes of the Double House of Life, or Learned Ones of the Magic Library. Great titles, job titles that many of us, I'm sure, would love to have. As the names indicate, they were in charge of the collection of papyri containing knowledge about omens, dream images, and the gods, who had a particular ability to interpret dreams, as well as they had the ability to send new ones. Some of these dream gods, one of them was an ibis-headed god called Thoth, and he is the god of scribes and all esoteric lore. But the favorite god of dreams was Bes, who is shown in art as a barbarian-looking dwarf with lion's ears, a full beard, a protruding tongue, a long phallus, and sometimes a necklace with a pendant skull. The only god whom Egyptian artists portrayed fully frontally and looking directly at the beholder. He was known to love dancing, travel, marriage, and warfare. A very balanced life. Egyptian headrests carved of wood or stone would often have a figure of Bes as the support, as if to guarantee prosperous dreams, good dreams. Another thing about these dream librarians, or the scribes of the double house of life, masters of the secret things, etc., is that they would be responsible for keeping dream books. And dream books were, it's almost like they were literally like librarians of dreams, which is interesting. I feel like it'd be really awesome to, be a fly on the wall back in time and see some of these like writings, assuming you could read the language, of course. But from Egypt, we being current humanity, possess a very early dream book in the form of a hieratic papyrus. And it is divided into two main sections, in which it lists dreams experienced by one of two categories of human beings, the followers of Horus and the followers of Set. And the followers of Horus category of dreams just means good dreams, essentially, since this is sort of a more righteous god, whereas Set, I believe, is the god of death, or he's a negative god. I don't actually recall. But yeah, if you were to have a dream that would fall into the category of being a follower of Set, and that would be an evil dream. And that doesn't mean you're evil necessarily, it just means watch out for that. But an example of some of these categories. So if a man sees himself in a dream, his penis becoming large, it's a good sign. It means his possessions will multiply. If he has a bow in his hand, that will mean that an important office will be given to him. If he's dying violently in a dream, that's also a good sign, believe it or not. It would mean that he would live after his father dies. So I guess that means it's implying that there's just sort of dying of old age, even though in the dream you're dying violently, which is kind of odd. Seeing the god who is above is also a good sign. It means that there'll be a lot of food. And seeing a serpent, also a good sign, apparently, meaning food. However, for some reason, even though the serpent is supposed to be food, a notched sycamore fig, that was a bad sign in a dream, and it meant that you would have stomach pains. Copulating with a female jerboa is a bad sign. I meant to look up what a jerboa was, and I forgot. I should actually do that real quick, because I feel like that would add to the fun. That was a bad sign, though, and it meant that the passing of judgment would be against you. Drinking a warm beer was a bad sign. It meant that suffering will come upon you, as well as munching a cucumber. Believe it or not, snakes was a good sign. That meant food, and munching a cucumber was a bad sign. That meant that the words will rise. Words will arise with him on his being met. I don't even know what that means, but it was a bad sign in ancient Egypt. Removing one of his legs was also a bad sign, and that meant that judgment would come upon him from those in the beyond. So even worse than the copulating with a female jeroba. Let me just check real quick what that is. Okay, it looks like some sort of wee bunny mouse thing. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know. I can't imagine that a human could even successfully copulate with that, but what are you going to do? So on the actual papyrus, one thing that's interesting, and you can kind of see here, I believe this is a photograph of the actual papyrus, and what you can see is that the word bad is written in red ink. Obviously you can't read it, but you can see sort of on this leftmost or rightmost side of this page here, it's bad, 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 bad. And then the word good was written black. Just an interesting little detail there. Ancient Mesopotamia also took dream books and sort of libraried and cataloged dreams. So they would contain lists of images that might have been seen in dreams with their supposed meanings. And the dream images were mentioned in a wide variety of topics. Apparently, an attempt was made to mention every possible variation of a certain type of dream and what each of those variations would mean. So, for example, there's an ancient Mesopotamian tablet that has been recovered that deals with dreams of urine. So, following are several dreams from it and their interpretations. So this is actually really interesting. So if a man in his dream walks on his urine, so he steps on his pee with his own foot, his eldest son will die. If he washes his hands with his urine, he will enjoy little. He won't have a good time if he washes his hands with his urine. If he sprinkles himself with his urine, his sheepfold will expand. So I take that means like a good harvest. If he sprinkles himself with his urine and wipes himself clean, he will catch a disease called the hand of Ishtar. If he directs his urine towards the sky, the son of this man, whom he will thereafter beget, will become important, but his own days will be short. Interesting. So he'll accomplish a lot, but then he'll die young. And this isn't him, this is his son will accomplish a lot and die young. If the father in a dream pees towards the sky. I love it. If he pours his urine into a river, his harvest will be bountiful. If he drinks the urine of his wife, the man will enjoy abundance. Lovely. In Mesopotamia, if one had a dream signifying an evil omen, such as the death of a son, so like the walking on your urine dream, one would have to say a prayer before getting out of bed to make sure it didn't come true, and it would banish the dream and its contents. And then finally, in terms of the cradle of civilization dreams, in older Hebrew texts, namely the Old Testament, contains many stories about God speaking to leaders, seers, and prophets through dreams, and like many other cultures in the region, the ancient Hebrews believed that sleep thinned the veil of the living world and the world of demons, angels, and spirits, and that sometimes God himself spoke to humans through their dreams. So one of the most famous stories that you've probably heard before is the dream interpretation story in the Bible, and that's from Joseph, who was sold into slavery by his brothers because he told them his dreams, and then became one of Egypt's most powerful men because he interpreted the dreams of the Pharaoh and saved the land from famine. And those dreams of the Pharaoh, the first was that there were 7 fat cows coming out of the Nile, and the 7 thin cows were coming up and devouring him. Oh, no, 7 thin cows came up after those first 7 cows and devoured them, sorry. And then the second dream was very similar, but the images were of ears of grain. And Joseph's interpretation of this was, of course, that there would be 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine. And this revelation, as it was interpreted by the Pharaoh, was seen as very helpful, and so Joseph became a very powerful figure in Egypt. And that is all for this week's presentation. I'd be stoked for advice from a deity. Yeah, it does seem like you'd be pretty confident about your decision making after that. It is interesting that in our society you would be viewed with distrust if you talked about doing this, yet in life it would be so much more interesting if it were common. Yeah, I'm not sure which this you're referring to. And maybe like going to a temple and like thinking about your dreams. Maybe that's what you're talking about. Jaroba hopping desert rodents found through Arabia. Seems legit about not having a good time if you wash your hands with the urine. I agree. I would have to agree with that. Yeah. I found it kind of funny also reading through some of that stuff. Just there seems to be a bit of a phallic obsession even 4,000 years ago. All these dreams about like where you point your dick to pee, like the direction you point it in matters, and all these dreams where it's expanding and shrinking. Pretty funny. Yeah, but yeah, let's read some nightmares from Reddit. So this is a post by a user named I Took Your Jams. The post is titled, I don't know what to do anymore. The post reads, first post in this sub, and I've been struggling to sleep for a healthy amount of time for nearly a year. Recently, I've been getting horrific nightmares, and also I may or may not be venting in the end. This is going to be short. Anyways, I was locked in an 1800s-like home. It appeared to be a mansion. The walls were never-ending, and the ceiling was pitch black. I was tied up along with other classmates. I couldn't see them, but I could hear familiar voices. It was really dark, and I had witnessed a lot of executions and entered rooms where I found people in the process of hanging themselves, but there was some sort of barrier where I couldn't enter the rooms. We escaped, and for some reason I had set the place on fire and felt someone stab me in the chest. I could feel my rib cage breaking somehow. I made it to the vehicle, and we escaped, and very few people were left. We left the mansion and arrived in my hometown, and everyone nearby was just dead or horribly slaughtered. What I witnessed seemed almost apocalyptic. And then a bomb was slowly heading towards the town, so I knew what was to come. So I eventually just laid on the ground, along with hundreds of thousands of others, only to be struck with an intense burning sensation. Then I woke up at around 3 or 4 a.m. and I still couldn't sleep at all. And I couldn't sleep at all. That's my nightmare. Alright, I'm not going to read the rest for now. Interesting. Sorry, I am kind of reading the rest to myself, but so it's in the past. Oh no, it's not in the past. It just takes place in an 1800s home, a mansion. My first thought was like Amnesia, but of course that's a castle. It's in the 1800s though. So there's people hanging themselves. So that's sort of like a suicide dream. Executions occurring. Classmates are there. And then apocalypse. So let's bring up our handy chart of dreams. And I have to full screen on my screen here so that I can even read it. So I thought apocalypse was one of them. Could be war, right, with the bomb dropping. Represents inner conflict that you're processing, an argument you had with someone. Could also be compensation or a lack of aggression in life. The dream is trying to tell you to be more aggressive or assertive. That could be possible. You did get stabbed in the chest at one point. I wonder if that was part of running. It doesn't say what you're running from at any point, though. That's kind of a difficult one. Set the place on fire. Setting a place on fire, that also kind of reminds me of burning down a house. House on fire. You're undergoing massive personal changes. If you have this dream repeatedly, it could mean you're resisting those personal changes. But again, I don't get the sense that this is your house per se. It's just a house that's on fire, so maybe that doesn't apply here. I'll just read what's after it, just so we have a bit more context. I just don't even sleep because I'm terrified that I'll dream up something like that again, and I told my mom I'm getting more and more concerned. Last time I told her, she gave me her phone, and it was causing it somehow. I was horrified. I tried falling asleep again, but ended up having a panic attack somehow. I constantly have nightmares in black and white, interesting, and I hear nothing, even when I experience some sort of sleep paralysis or hallucination. I'm scared to tell my mom because I feel like she'll call me crazy or send me off to a hospital and leave me there or something. I hardly have anything to say about this. Maybe I'm just overreacting, according to my mom. Nightmares can seem very real. It's hard to blame you for being freaked out by them. Yeah, a house is usually about yourself, and if it's burning, that could indicate that you're going through some personal changes. Also, Yeah, there's other like indicators. I'm gonna read another one. This is a post by Meows with 5 S's at the end. The post is titled, I vividly dreamt that my wrists were sliced open. I had a nightmare where my mom and I were at a yard sale and I was waiting for her in the passenger side seat of her car. This seemed so real because we would go garage sailing every weekend and I'd usually stay in the car and I didn't see anything I liked. Anyway, I was waiting with her in the car, eating nachos. I remember that there were diced peppers in the cheese and it was so good. I noticed that there were 2 10 to 14-year-old kids walking down the street, about to pass by the car I was in. They came up to my window and asked for directions somewhere. When I rolled down my window to point in the direction I was talking about, one of them forcibly grabbed my forearm and slid it to the bone from my elbow to wrist. I remember being in absolute shock. Meanwhile, the other boy grabbed my other arm and did the same thing. I'll never forget seeing my bones and seeing my skin be cut open like that. The vision was starting to get fuzzy, and my hearing was starting to leave. It felt so real. I looked out to see my mom at this yard sale, and she hadn't even noticed what happened. I couldn't scream for help since I knew I was about to die, and by the time I got help, I definitely would have been dead. Blood was pouring out of my body, and I had to just accept my fate. The pain was unbearable, and the feeling of dread was something I never forgot. I hoped it was just a dream. When I woke up, my heart was racing. I was sweating profusely, and I had a vague pain in my forearms. Really freaky. So there's a few here, right? So we have an injury. We have silent screams. What else do we have? Is there one for blood? I feel like I had one for blood, but I forget what it was. Anyway, so for injuries, that means that you're feeling weak or vulnerable about some aspect of your life. And for silent screams, that means you feel like you don't have a voice. You aren't being heard in real life. Or that you feel helpless or frustrated with some situation. So can those tie together? Maybe the oh no, my light died. No, I was holding on to that for so long. That's not good. Anyway, I'll try to just stay closer to the screen. I'll just get real close. But when I'm reading the dream chart, it has to be a little bit dark, I'm afraid. Sorry, yeah, so with the silent screams, you feel helpless or frustrated with some situation. And so combining those, it could be that you feel vulnerable about some aspect of your life, and that aspect of your life could be that you feel like you can't speak for whatever reason. Yeah, you can kind of see me all right when I'm not in that screen. Sorry about that, though. I'll charge that for next time. I forgot I have to charge it after every 4 sessions. They are the last earthly traces of the dead and seem to last forever. Bones symbolize the indestructible life, yet also may represent mortality and the transitory. What are? Oh, bones. Sorry, I'm very out of it today. This is a short one. Oh, let me put my chart away. This is a post by a user named Dodo's Larynx 29. The post is titled, "So yeah, I got killed." The post reads, "It was a whole story, kind of where I was in someone else's body and there was a party and there was a ghost and people kept disappearing, and in the end the ghost got me because I went to another room to get a bowl of ice cream. I still remember how it killed me. I'm scared now. Haha. Wow, okay. Let me try a different one. Okay, this is a post by a user named MinecraftHo15. Sorry, I'm smelling a bit the other one. The post is titled, "I woke up with a scar on my stomach." The post reads, "Okay, so when I was around 9 or 10, I had a nightmare that I will never forget. So the dream started out with me in some type of large white facility with wide silver tubes stretching from one wall to the other. They were about the size of those kiddie rainbow tubes that they have in preschools, but it was silver and it had wide plastic windows. I was suited up in a hazmat suit, and there were others with me in the same suits as well. When I looked up to one of the windows of the silver tube above me, I saw grayish alien-like creatures crawling through at top speed. At that point, I knew I was in Area 51 in some type of alien research center. When I looked over to my right, I saw one of the workers who was in a hazmat suit with a cup of coffee. He waved at me, but I didn't wave back because my body was stationary. I could only move my head and eyes. Right next to the worker was one of the creatures. It saw in the tube on the wall that looked like something out of medieval times, but metal, like it's sat up right and its arms and legs were strapped to the wall. The grayish alien's face was actually cute, but it was crying and moaning in pain. I felt terrible not being able to help it, because my body couldn't move. It looked at me one last time, and then the straps of metal wall pulled its limbs off, and once again its green blood spurted everywhere. The most sad part of it was that there was a tube right next to the wall, and looking through the window were two aliens, a baby one and a mother one, that witnessed the whole thing. I wanted to help the aliens try to escape, but my body couldn't move no matter what. Then, suddenly, my head was forced to look to the left. There was the same type of wall with the same type of alien strapped to it, and then bam, blam, the wall launched the other alien across the wall and splatted against the wall with guts everywhere. I think that meant the room, and it splatted everywhere. And right as it happened, I woke up and started crying. I know this story doesn't seem that scary to y'all, but to me, especially as a 9-year-old when they had the dream, when I woke up the next morning, I found a large cut going down my stomach from my neck to my belly button. It wasn't there before. I didn't have any clothing that could have made it. I was low-key convinced I was actually kidnapped and brought to Area 57. And it only felt like a dream. I still have some of the scar on my neck, but it mostly faded. Wow. I was thinking more maybe you were abducted by aliens, and they just sort of like role reversed what you saw. You know, maybe they just replaced in your brain the memories of humans for aliens instead. Maybe those were aliens being experimented on and tortured. Area 57. I think it's Area 51, but what do I know? I'm not in the U.S. Air Force. Yeah, but that's freaky that you wake up with a huge scar across your body. I think that's difficult to even know how that could have happened in your sleep. There was this one time where I jumped into bed. It was like my old childhood bed, and I felt like a sharp pain in my butt cheek, and I got up, like it hurt a lot, and I got up and I looked down and there was nothing there. It was just my bed. And then I kind of like pushed down gradually, and this giant like 4 or 5 inch spike, which was I guess part of the bed springs or something, it was just like sticking up out of the bed, and it was like, are you kidding me? Like that could have like seriously like killed, maybe not killed me, but it could have seriously injured me or hurt me, like, you know. It's messed up. And sorry, just when you're talking about a huge cut all the way down from your neck to like abdomen. That's insane. Maybe it reminded me of that spike. Could also have been you doing it to yourself. Could also have been alien abduction or even human abduction to Area 51. That's freaky, though. Not long ago, I dreamt that my mother came and told me that she had been to a concert with her grandsons, and during the concert, someone had put cuts in the sleeves of all their jackets, from the elbow to the wrist. That's kind of a freaky dream, and I have no idea what that could possibly mean. Wants them to stay nice and cool, maybe. Freaky. But yeah, for this alien dream, like that's a difficult one. I don't really know. Like other creatures being tortured, not yourself being tortured, like that's not something I'm familiar with. This is a post by a user named Sahara Manera. The post is titled The Wire Monster. The post reads, I get nightmares a lot, and I was watching Outlast 2 before bed, so I'm not surprised this happened. Anyways, it started off in a smaller trailer park looking community, but a higher end one. A mother has mysteriously disappeared, and there's not really any evidence or reason as to where or why she's missing, but the majority of people believed that there was foul play involved. We looked through her house and went down into the basement. We found a large room filled with guns and hockey memorabilia. Weird, but nothing too out of the ordinary. After a while of playing with the guns, 2 crude holes manifested in the walls, and wire-like appendages quickly came out and grabbed 3 of the people I was with and dragged them into the walls. I managed to escape with a few others, and we realized that this was the cause of the mother's death, but we had no idea what happened. We run out of the house and into the street, and I go running to the neighbor's house for safety. On the porch, there are 2 tribal-looking fellows sitting outside. The one closest to me is adorned with a necklace of bones and has long black hair and wrinkly skin. Before I even say anything, he jokingly says, I killed her. And his friend starts laughing, and so does a random girl on the porch. I forget what I asked him, but he ended up telling me that there is a curse on this land, because it was stolen from his ancestors, and people will keep dying and disappearing until they leave. The next sequences of the dream were blurry, but mainly consisted of people in the trailer park getting brutally killed by the wire monster. The children of the mother who died were playing together in a different house. I believe there was 3 or 4 of them in total, with their ages ranging from infant to child. They knew about the monster, and it looked like it was forcing them to play some game. When they messed up, the monster would whip and beat them with its wires. This next part was really messed up and woke me up, so don't read if you are faint of heart. The wire monster proceeded to pick up the youngest child, who was still an infant, and dangled him from his feet, leaving him hanging upside down. The monster then proceeded to slowly pull and rip apart the infant in 2, ripping the child in half and brutally murdering him, while the other children watched helplessly. And that's the end of the dream. If you came this far, yes, I know that was really messed up, but this is what happens when you only watch horror movies and have deep dreams. Also, don't watch Outlast 2 gameplay before bed. Wow. Sorry, there's just like oh, it was a TLDR. I thought it was a PS. I won't read it then. So, actually, my own interpretation of this dream, because you're not really running from anything. It is a monster, and it's a very specific monster. The first kind of like feelings I got were that it's about climate change and about pollution. This might be my own interpretation of your dream, though, so take that with a grain of salt. But just the fact that it's like it's specifically like it almost sounds like a garbage monster or something, like something that would come out of the dump to haunt you. And then the other clue there is just like sort of the native people who maybe you might associate with, like they live a more like natural lifestyle. In the dream, I'm talking about the native people, that they're talking about there's a curse on the land and it was stolen from the ancestors and whatnot. And then the third thing I was thinking is that because at the end of the dream, it's the youngest children that are getting killed, which could also be, maybe about like global warming or something, because like maybe that won't affect people who are already adults, but it might affect those who are young right now. Anyway, I don't want to put, words in your mouth or anything, but I just thought that would be kind of maybe an interesting interpretation to consider. Maybe I have seen Outlast 2 gameplay, but I know it's not about this, right? It's about like an insane asylum. So it seems like maybe another interpretation is welcome. Hopefully. Goddesses that wear a necklace of bones around their necks or on their hip refer to the pressure of the passing and swiftness of time. If you are killing a baby, it may mean ending dreams, saying goodbye, or breaking ties with something from your childhood. Some food for thought there from the chat on that dream. That was a good one though. Really good dream. I know it's just a dream you had, but a dream that she had, but yeah. I enjoyed it. That's what I mean to say. This is a dream by a user named Nightmare, I should say, by a user named AnonSweet. It is titled, "One of many dreams that, shit, I might be dead, and is this the afterlife? And it's awful." The post reads, "I wake up gasping for air, like I cannot believe I'm alive. It's usually a psychologically torturing dream, which I can't escape, and then end up believing I'm dead, trying to wake up, going, please, can this be a dream? Sorry. And not being able to wake up and thinking, oh my god, well I'm dead. Like what the hell, I died in my sleep. My family and friends are going to be gutted. I don't even know how I managed to die. I genuinely thought I was trapped in the afterlife. And I thought I was going to meet all the people I knew and had died in my life, and that this was what they went through. It was awful. Always linked this feeling to possible sleep apnea, but a test came back saying I didn't have it. But obviously, this is not a daily occurrence? ? Interesting. I don't know. I've had dreams where I die, of course, but I don't know if I've ever had one where I thought I was in the afterlife. Sorry, I might have just shaken the camera there a bit. That's freaky, though. I wonder, like psychologically torturing. So it's not like you actually think you're in hell. You wake up gasping for air. So it's a false awakening. That's all I really know for sure. Could be... I don't know. I got nothing. That's really freaky though. Like it'd be interesting to see what his surroundings are. That's what I'm trying to say. When he has these dreams. Like, is he in his bed still? Is he in a different place? Is it just dark and it's just a sensation that he's having? Also, maybe the gasping for air, like, could it be sleep paralysis, right? Like, maybe he is actually awake and it isn't a false awakening. Hard to know. Maybe not enough there, but a spooky dream. I like that one. Another shorter one. I think I'm going to stick to some of these longer ones. Oops. This is a post by Yellow Bee's Knees. The post is titled, "Incredibly Disturbing." The post reads, I am an avid horror fan, but haven't been listening to true crime podcasts, horror shows, or anything of the nature in the last month, I would say. Last night, I had one of the most disturbing dreams I think I've ever had. I often take photos around the property of my house. It sits on several acres, so there's a good amount of space to get photos. For reference, there are 2 very old school buses that are stationary on the property. They were given back in the 70s from a different state, so in the dream I'm editing photos with somebody I've been having issues with at work, and he makes a comment about one of them not being satisfactory. So I walk back out to the school bus and see a small glass-shaped heart mirror hanging on the inside, and I make a comment about what a good picture it would make. When I put my camera up to my eye and look through the viewfinder, I'm looking at the mirror, and it's almost as if I can look into a different dimension, and in there I see a row of people sitting in the school bus, one of them in a very almost Raggedy Ann costume, obviously the center of the dream. She then starts eating people's organs with a fork. Out of the woods climbs a male, and in a very similar costume. I look over at him, and looking back at the mirror, and the girl inside the bus has now slashed her throat, and is taking a fork and eating whatever she pulls out of herself. So, auto-cannibalizing. That is a fantastic nightmare. Raggedy Ann doll costume. I mean, yeah, like the first part was kind of obvious. So there's a guy at work who's just kind of annoying, and he's criticizing your photos. And then that second part, it really does take a bit of a turn, doesn't it? Oh wow, there's so many like layers to that. You see it when you look through your camera and point your camera at the mirror. I've got no idea. It's just so freaky. I feel like usually I have more to say, and tonight I'm just kind of drawing blanks. I mean, these are some crazy dreams though. Like it's really difficult to interpret that. The chat might have something to say about that in a minute, but I might read another one for now and come back to it. This is a post by a user named Lots of Snakes. The post is titled, Recurring Nightmares Suck. I would know. I don't have any other kind of nightmare. I don't get nightmares often, and even then the nightmares are almost never new, and they've only been a one-time thing once. The few nightmares I do have are recurring until I change something about my life. That's what recurring nightmares are for. My most common and also my scariest nightmare still happens to me, and part of the scary thing is that it doesn't sound stupid when written or told. Okay. Basically, I'm running somewhere. It's often winding corridors in a house I don't know. Sometimes it's just open plains, sometimes it's alleys, but wherever it is, I'm running. I feel as if I've been running for a while. My breathing is heavy and my heart is racing. I want to see what I'm running from, so I turn my head and look. It's a shadowy, smoky, humanoid figure with glowing white eyes. Basically, it looks like a shadow of a human, but it's also got shadow smoke coming off of it, and it's pooling on the ground. It's pretty far away, and it isn't moving. I keep running, but I wasn't sure why in the beginning. But now whenever I have the dream I know. I turn to look at the figure. It's still not moving, but it's closer than last time. I'm still running through the house, across the plains or through the alleys. I'm not being pulled back, and it's somehow closer. The third time I look, there's another. It looks more like a dog, and it's not smoking as much. Neither is moving, although the dog seems frozen in the middle of a bound. Oh, the dog is slightly ahead of the figure. Fourth time, it's another dog. The fourth time he looks around. Group is closer again. The white eyes are scary. The fifth time he looks around. Closer. 2 more dogs. The humanoid's eyes are pinkish now. Every time I look back, the dog pack has doubled and the group is closer. The dogs are all frozen in various stages of running. The humanoid's eyes are slowly getting more red. Then, when the pack has at least 20 dogs and the figures are about 5 feet away, I trip, like it's a horror movie. I've never seen a horror movie. That's a real comment. I roll onto my back and the figure is standing right above me. The dogs are gone. His face is about an inch from mine and he moves. He reaches out its hand, and just before it touches my face, I wake up. I'm terrified of that dream. I shudder to think of what might happen if the figure touches me. Another part of the terror is the fact that with most nightmares, I can wake myself up. If I'm scared of something in a dream, I can force my eyes open in real life. With this dream, I can't. I can tell I'm in this nightmare. I can remember it from the times I've had it before, but I can't do anything but follow the path in my dream and hope it stays the same. Once again, with all my other nightmares, I've needed to change something in my real life to stop them. For example, I had a nightmare where I was on a hill, and it would then zoom out, and I would actually be standing on giant bones. I'd wake up with a sense of dread, like the feeling you get when nature goes silent. Oh, that's such a freaky... This is amazing. I don't know if it's a guy, but it's amazing. I stopped when we went back home from Luxembourg. I was dreading my days at school with my bullying teacher and bullying boys. But this one, I'm not sure what it wants from me. I don't know what it wants me to change. That's like one of my favorite nightmares I've ever read. That's so cool. It's gonna take me a minute to digest that. I mean, I know. Let's pull up the old dream chart. So I have to go dark, unfortunately, to read this. So shadowy figures. I know that's one. Dark figures. So that means doubt or uncertainty about your future or experiencing a significant change in your life. And then the other significant theme in this dream is running away, which of course indicates that you're avoiding a confrontation in real life or from another person or situation. And normally the way in which you confront things in your life, or the way that you're running from things in your dream, is the way that you may be also running from them. The way that you run from things in real life or avoid conflict in real life is the way that you run from things in your dream. So if it's, if you hit the thing and run, or if you run and hide, it seems like you run and run for the hills and you don't look back. Well, you do look back, I guess, but but that combined with it being a shadowy figure, I would consider all of the elements to be part of the shadowy figure. My interpretation of the dogs that double, that get exponentially more when you look back, I would just say that that's like, you can't escape, and the harder you run, the harder it pursues you. Like, there's no escape from it, whatever it is. And it's also, I have an idea. I should have done this a long time ago. But where is it? There it is. Sorry, I'll just use my phone flashlight just for these dark screens. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely that you're avoiding something, but again, it's difficult to know what it is because there isn't really anything. I wonder if the color of the eyes of the being indicates anything. It gets red as it gets closer, and it becomes white, but I don't know if you can actually see the white when it's far away. But yeah, there's definitely something you're running from. That much is clear. And yeah, I really love your approach to like actually like how you deal with your nightmares though, and you actually really like actively recognize when there's things that need to be addressed in your like real life. That was awesome. I know you didn't send it to me, but I really appreciate that was posted. Lots of snakes. And I'm sorry I didn't do a very good job of interpreting it. Sorry. So I typed in this, Raggedy Ann eating people in a dream. I got Dream Kardashian is the most adorable Raggedy Ann for Halloween. So another kind of nightmare. That's funny. Also, dreaming of killer dolls are nightmares to people. You may have been killed by dolls like Annabelle or Chucky in your dreams. Although it appears to be brutal and frightening, dolls are trying to kill you in dreams represent your insecurities and fears in real life. Interesting. So then that could be, this is of course for the previous dream, not the one I just read, but the one where she points her camera at the mirror and sees the dolls. That could be indicating, I mean, if the dolls are trying to kill you and it's insecurity, that could be about that guy at your work who's critiquing your photos. It could just be an extension of that, possibly. Seeing red eyes on a person with bad intent is quite common in a dream. The dream could also indicate that you have made the wrong choices in life and you have negative thinking. Interesting. I mean, that's a very interesting possibility because you just keep having it throughout your life. I mean, at some point, though, you would probably just change whatever the path you were on was, but interesting. Let's do one more. Speaking of dolls, this is a post by a user called CreepyDoll17. The post is titled, "Just had this nightmare and wanted to share because wow." The post reads, "Okay, so I've had a lot of horrific nightmares. Bear mares are the worst. But this one was just unnerving. In the dream I lived in one... I'm going to try that again. In the dream I lived in like one of those side road hotels, apartment complexes, and I heard a scream right next to me through the wall. It was a weird one, and I had doubts that what I heard was true, but I decided to act just in case, not thinking much about it. So I go into different rooms, trying to find someone, and basically finding myself all alone and isolated. I go to a room in my home and call someone right away, next to a closet, leaning against a door. Guys, you know that feeling where something instantly becomes very real and terrifying? Like when something you weren't even considering catches you off guard. I suddenly think much other than... I didn't think much other than a hunch, but then when I held the closet door, someone was opening it. Suddenly everything became very real and it was happening to me. I struggled to keep it shut, and the last thing I remember was screaming. I could feel myself trying to in real life as I struggled to, and then the killer's hand was reaching out for me. I woke up thankfully, and I now can't get back to sleep. I think a part of it is just how real it could be. Nothing in it suggests it could happen. No cartoon characters, nothing. And I think that's what bothers me. Also the fact that the situation got so real, and my struggle just, wow. You never think it can happen until it's too late. I mean, the fact that you're able to move around makes me almost think it's a night terror. Do you know for a fact that you're moving around in real life, though? Or is that just, maybe you're dreaming that too? You're at least lucid, because you're recognizing, you're at least believing that you're moving around in real life. That was actually something that I thought about for the previous stream too, and I forget why. But there was something that made me think that they could have been having the dream as a night terror. Oh yeah, it was because he said, or she, whoever, whatever it is, they said that they could normally in nightmares they can force themselves to open their eyes, but you shouldn't be able to move if you're in the REM cycle of sleep, right? So that makes me almost think maybe normally his nightmares or her nightmares are night terrors. And maybe in this case, the man or the shadowy figure who chases with the dogs, that's an actual REM sleep nightmare. Like maybe it's like physiologically a different sort of thing. An interesting possibility. But sorry, going back to this post by Creepy Doll. I don't have much to say about it. It's happening in your house, and it just feels very real. Well, we talked about last week how the premonitory dreams can somehow feel very real. But that would be like without like a single detail flawed. So that's probably, probably don't have to worry about this being premonitory. Also, premonitory dreams are probably BS. So as far as, as far as we know. But yeah, that's a scary dream. And a killer in your house, maybe self-sabotage. Exploring a house is usually exploring the self. And that's another point also for the being chased by a shadowy figure dream, because sometimes he's running through a field, but sometimes he also says that he was running through like hallways of a mansion, right? So that could be a lot of that one seems like uncertainty about the self and needing to explore the self deeper. Maybe there's some repressed trauma or something. That would be, the fun interpretation of that dream. I'm sorry I'm still talking about that dream. I've been forgetting all my dreams lately. That's too bad. Well, if you remember one, send it to theforgottengrove@gmail.com. And I'm mentioning that because it's about time to end for this week. Sorry we had a bit of technical difficulties with the lighting, and I don't know, I was a bit out of it tonight, but next week's going to be so good. I'm so pumped for next week. It's going to be, the topic, of course, will be the Man in the Hat, which is this sort of folk legend from the modern internet about, well, you'll find out what it's about next week. It's going to be really freaky, though. So tune in for that. I've been Sandor Desmond with The Forgotten Grove. This has been Nightmare Theater, an open book club for nightmares. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified when I go live next week. And until next time, embrace the beautiful dark.